Good morning, Dr. George Westlake from Sheffield Family Life Center in Kansas City, Missouri. And I haven't been able to be on for a few mornings because I live in a condo and they were working on the roof and on the side and on the outside and mowing lawns and all kinds of things and all that noise behind. So I really gave up trying to do this morning thing, but yet the Lord's been dealing with me just as a matter of encouragement to God's people. And just as a matter of some sharing some things in this difficult time where we live today. I started last week to talk about Jesus using the phrase, I am. He never said, I am he. In the New Testament Greek language, which is common Greek, I call it street Greek. If you ask me if you're George Westlake, I would say I am. Well, Jesus said, ego, and I would say, eimi, that's Greek. That's the Greek for I am. However, Jesus added something else to it. He added the word ago. In other words, he was saying, I am, meaning nobody else is. He never said, I am he. He said, I am. When they came to take him in the Garden of Eden, he said, who do you seek? They said, Jesus of Nazareth. He said, I am. They went backward and fell to the ground. Why? For that brief moment, he stood there as God. You have to go back to Exodus where Moses asked God, what's your name? And he said, I am that I am. So we have I am frequently on the lips of Jesus. When they were troubled going across the sea and saw what they thought was a ghost walking on the water, they cried out in fear. And Jesus said, I am. Stop being afraid. And I want to remind you today, he is. 4 times in the book of Revelation, we have the phrase, I am the Alpha and the Omega. And then something added. Sometimes I am the beginning and the end. And sometimes I am the first and the last. The Alpha and Omega, the first and last letters of the Greek alphabet. So in plain English, Jesus is basically saying, I'm the A to the Z. I am the alphabet. Now, why in the world would Jesus pick that out to say, I'm the alphabet? I'm the A to the Z. Let me give you some things about the alphabet, okay, that refer to what we're going through today and the presence of Jesus Christ in our lives. The alphabet can never be exhausted. Used century after century by various people. I'd say, what did William Shakespeare write? What did Mark Twain write? What did Dr. Martin Luther King write? What did Abraham Lincoln write? What has Charles Stanley written? What has T.G. Jakes written? Nothing but the 26 letters of the alphabet, and turned them around and twisted them around and formed to say different things. The 26 letters of the alphabet are inexhaustible. Now, everything else is relegated to the scrap heap of history. You look at science. You know, science for many years believed the earth was flat. It's amazing to me that some people today are trying to say, well, science has deceived us into believing the earth is round when the Bible teaches it's flat. The Bible doesn't teach the earth is flat. It uses the idiom of the day. We might say northeast, south, and west. They said the 4 corners of the earth. That was the idiom of the day. That doesn't mean the earth has 4 corners. As a matter of fact, the oldest book known to mankind is the book of Job. And in Job chapter 26, verse 8, it says, God hangs the earth on nothing. And there's a teaching going around by so-called Christians that the earth is flat and the earth is sitting on a pedestal and it has a dome over it. That's what the ancients believed. In the book of Isaiah, it says God sits on the circle of the earth. And I read some of the arguments of people. They say, well, you can see the North Star from anywhere. That proves the earth is flat. Well, you can't see it if you go 2 degrees south of the equator. It's no longer visible. And I read somewhere the way the earth is turning, it's going to take 18,000 years before you can see the North Star in the southern hemisphere. And when you travel around the world, as I do, go halfway around the world to places like Singapore and Indonesia, 14-hour time change, it's obvious that the earth is round. And the Bible said that in the book of Job again, the oldest book known to man. When did we find out the earth was round? In 1492, when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And Jesus taught at the point of time when he's coming back, there's going to be some people doing morning work, some afternoon work, and some night work, meaning at the same time, different parts of the earth would be morning, noon, and night. When did we find that out? 1492, when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And the biggest hoax of all is evolution. Hypothesis after hypothesis after hypothesis piled upon top and false conclusions drawn. One of the scientists that received the Nobel Prize for Science made the statement that evolution is the biggest hoax ever perpetrated on the human race. And it truly is. You ought to read the book, The Case for a Creator by Lee Strobel, when he examines all the theories of science and talks to some of the major scientists in every field of the world and shows out there has to be a creator. Just a little thing I learned many years ago. Why does sunlight come into your house? Light goes in a straight line. It doesn't curve. So what brings light into your house? There's a dust that you can't see that carries into the rooms of your house. There had to be a creator to do those kind of things. And what about machinery and computers? You buy a car, it's already behind scale in just a couple of years. And my computer sitting here is 3 years old, and I tried to use some software the other day, and it said your computer has to be upgraded. So it has to be upgraded before I could use the software. So I had to get in line with Apple and get my computer upgraded after only 3 years. Machinery worn out. How about clothing? Styles change. Well, when I first started preaching, you had to wear a suit and a tie everywhere you went. Now, if you wear a suit and a tie, people wonder what you're doing in the pulpit, dressed so fancy as that in many, many places. What about the idea of health? I was thinking today, when I was a kid, I was very skinny. And as a matter of fact, when I went in the Army when I was 20, I'm almost 6 feet tall and I only weighed 127 pounds. I could probably hide behind a microphone. But when I was a kid, my mother would see a fat child and say, boy, there's a healthy looking child. Well, now we wouldn't say that. Now we'd say thin as in. Philosophies and religions change. Nations rise and fall. La Follette made a statement that's been eating at my heart. He was a French statesman many, over 100 years ago. And he made the statement, America is great because America is good. If America ever stops being good, it will no longer be great. Look at what's going on in our nation today. There is nothing stable. Nations and things, and they crumble. What can I put my life on? What can I be stable? What will not change? I like what the songwriter said, on Christ the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. I want to read you a statement from the text in the book of Colossians. Many, many years before Christ, several hundred years before Christ, the Greek poet Homer, the one who wrote the Odyssey and the Iliad, he came up with a phrase in Greek, ta panta, T-A-Panta. Literally translated, it is the all things. And he used that to refer to everything that exists. Everything that exists, he summed up in the term ta panta. Well, the Apostle Paul picks up that word in the book of Colossians, describing Jesus Christ. And he's fighting the idea that Jesus Christ is somehow a created being, okay? That he is somehow a created being. Let me read from the Greek text. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn, there's the word, firstborn of every created thing. For by him were all things created, that are in heaven, that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things, ta panta, were created by him and for him. He himself is before the ta panta, the all things, and by him, ta panta, all things hold together. He is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might have the preeminence. For it pleased the Father that in him should all the fullness dwell. He is the firstborn of every created thing because he created everything that exists. And what Paul is pointing out to the heretical teaching in Colossians is that God, Jesus Christ, is not created. He is the creator. And since he created the all things, he himself is not created. You read in John chapter 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things came into existence through him, and by him there came into existence not one thing which has come into existence. So apart from him there came into existence not one thing which has come into existence. So he is solid, he is firm, and we can depend on him. Nothing takes him by surprise. Someone asked me, They kind of get the idea that God's panic over what's going on. God doesn't panic, folks. He knows the end from the beginning. And he will take you through whatever you're going through today. He was the same before this started. He will be the same after this started. And we know we're living in the closing hours of time. We're going to see prophecy continuing to take place at warp speed. And we need to live as men and women expecting our Lord. But whatever you're going through, commit your way to the Lord. As the psalmist said, trust in him and he will bring it to pass. Get your eyes off your situation and get on him that created the all things. Peter was walking on water till he got his eyes on the storm and on the waves and took his eyes off Jesus. Get your eyes on Jesus Christ. He is the Alpha. He is the Omega. I'll be talking more about that tomorrow. But he is the alphabet, and the alphabet is inexhaustible. And Jesus Christ is inexhaustible to meet your need, to do what you need to have done. He's that God we serve today. And I'll try to get back. I want to remind you, tomorrow night I'll do my live Bible question and answer program. It's on from 7:30 to 9 o'clock, both here on Facebook and YouTube. And you can send your questions ahead of time if you like. You can send them to drgwwjr, Dr. George W. Westlake Jr., drgwwjr@gmail.com. Or else while we're live on the air, you can write them in the comment section on Facebook and they'll be written down and handed to me and I'll answer them right then. I love answering questions. I'm not good at these short devotions. I almost told God I don't want to do this. If you want me to preach a long sermon, fine. If you want me to teach an hour and a half Bible study, fine. But to do something short and brief other than answering questions, I've never been very good at that. I'm 88 years old and it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. But I am going through the Alpha and Omega a little bit day by day this week and to show you who Jesus Christ is and what he can do for you. I also want to remind you, I do have my book on Revelation and Daniel that I finally finished writing. It's the second book I wrote on it. I wrote this the end of last year, and it's actually gone all over the world. And I get a lot of good comments on it as Revelation and Daniel simply explained. I call it chapter 66. God didn't give us a book that he didn't want us to understand. There's 66 books in the Bible, and that included chapter 66, the book of Revelation. And it's simply explained. It goes through the book of Revelation chapter by chapter, and it explains it in a way that you can understand. I guarantee after you read this book, you'll understand what the book of Revelation is about. That's why I call it Simply Explained. And thank you for watching. And again, remember the program tomorrow night, 7:30 to 9, Living Answers for Today. Again, the question line is drgwwjr@gmail, or else live while we're on the air. God bless you. Have a great day in Jesus. He is the Alpha and he is the Omega, and he's that to you.